everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I am your host, Lauren Yao. This is part of my 29 Days of Magic series where I get to interview 29 phenomenal Black women for 29 straight days. And today, I'm so delighted to have the wonderful Sienna Farris, who is a brand marketer and storyteller, as well as head of strategic partnerships at Reading Rhythms. She's got a great story, and I can't wait to dive on in. Hi, Sienna. How are you going?
Good. How are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Oh, sure. Just talking to Black women all day long. It's my joy. So, want to dive into the first question. Answers are always awesome, and I can't imagine yours won't be. So, Sienna, what was your all-time favorite job?
I've had a lot of jobs, but I feel like the one that was one of the most meaningful for me was I headed up multicultural marketing at Simon and Schuster, and I was able to work with Black and Brown authors on helping them with their promoting their books and building their platforms. And one of the most meaningful and rewarding parts of that job is I created a platform called Books Like Us, where we created video series, we had event programming, we had a book club, we partnerships with book influencers, and so it was just I'm such a big reader, and it was so amazing to meet so many authors that are doing so much amazing work and figure out really strategic ways to get them in front of new audiences. So I loved working there.
Awesome. And I feel like that made an impact. I can
Yeah.
probably guess it made a pretty big one.
Yeah, well, because I got to work with such great authors, like I got to meet Sheila Johnson, who, yeah, and worked on her book from a literary perspective, like Kiese Layman, a lot of really like emerging debut fiction that's really great. A book that just came out a couple of years ago called Swift River. So just really like helping and finding they've already written this work, but helping them connect with like new audiences. And then also I did a lot of partnership work, so I would reach out and try to find Black and Brown and Asian brands that might want to align and partner with us, whether it's in food or whether it was in entertainment or fashion, and just really creating a whole experience around the book.
Awesome. So, it sounds like you had quite the career journey. How did we get to be having this conversation right now? What's the Sienna story?
It's funny because my story, and I feel like a lot of people's stories like that, it's not a very linear path. I started out in agencies, digital agencies. I consider myself really like a grandma on social media because I had a job where people didn't know where social media was. I had to explain that to people. I worked at an ad agency where we launched the first branded Facebook page for a brand for Panasonic. When I was working at an agency called Renegade Marketing, that was also a very fun job. When you're 20s and working in agencies, it's fantastic. So I had this agency experience. I also worked on CPG brands like, Pampers and some other Frito Lay. So did that. So I had this like agency background working in social. And then I made a pivot and started working brand side, and I worked at Estee Lauder companies, working across their portfolio of brands of like, MAC, Aveda, Clinique, you name it. They have all that portfolio. And then helping them again at that time, it was very unusual for beauty brands to think of themselves on par with their customers. It's always with prestige and luxury. You're up here, they're down there, like really helping them figure out how to engage in this relatively new space. Again, that sounds so weird to say within social and digital,
Yeah.
and but still keep your brand equity, still feel like you as a brand have somewhat of control, but then also having a relationship with consumers. So agency world, then beauty, and then I made the pivot to publishing. I'd always really been a big reader. I just feel like as a marketer, you can market in a lot of different industries. I feel like right now everyone's tries to like pigeonhole people into like you've only worked in publishing, so you should just stay in publishing. I feel like there's a lot of different places that you can pivot. So I went to publishing. So that was my big, pivot. And then I decided to take a rest. It's very rare for Black
Yes.
women to feel like you can take a rest. And I just decided, this is a really funny story. So right now, we're in 2026. It was in 2024.
Yes.
I'm in Portugal with my family, with my husband and my kids, and like some friends. And I remember having like the best time, but also just looking up at the sky and being like, I really wish that I could just have a break. I don't want to be sick. Like I just really don't want to work for a while. And when you make these kind of comments or these statements, it's really important to really realize that you are opening yourself up. And right when that I said that, like a series of emails came in, and it wasn't like I wasn't getting let go, but just the way my work was not going to be the way that I wanted it anymore. And I was like, let me just take a step back and think about what I want to do next. So that's the long answer to how I
Well, it's a
came.
sign from the universe. It's like when you
Yeah,
put it out there, like that's what it says, be careful what you put out there because it
yeah,
will come back.
yes, yes,
But it's also it's so important to have that rest. I think
yes.
that's a big part of the conversations I'm having with all the women so far is like, okay, what is that moment of like, you know what? I can sit my behind down
Right.
for a little bit.
Not saying that I was enjoying it. Like,
No,
we always feel like we should be doing something.
of
And
course.
what's funny is, my husband, he's had his own pivots and he's now a career coach. So living with a career coach is very interesting, especially someone who works on midlife. So he was just always
Oh
telling me,
boy.
yeah, on like what's your next chapter, like literally coming from publishing, like what's your next chapter. And so he would just say to me like, you need to stop, you need to pause, you need to think about what you're going to do. Don't think about like, okay, yes, it's important to pay the bills, but don't think it from that lens. Like if you're really going to do what you want to do, like what do you enjoy? And as I mentioned before, in publishing, what I really enjoyed was creating events and experiences with brand partners within publishing. So I really enjoyed doing that. I really enjoyed doing brand building for brands with like purpose and, with wellness. So I decided that's what I'm going to do. So I've been working now at an experiential company around reading. If you're a reader, even if you're a big reader and you love it, it can be an isolating hobby. When I was growing up, and people were like, "What's your hobby? Do you like horseback riding? Do you like soccer? You like to read, and you're alone." Um, and so this is an experiential community where readers come together and they read in person. And there's an epidemic of loneliness in this country, especially around Gen Z and millennials who only know how to engage within the phone, and they come together and they read books and listen to music and they have community. So I'm really helping this company scale and find brand partners who want to reach these really engaged and thoughtful community. And I've been loving that. So I've been doing that. And then also just really working with, beauty brands and wellness brands on their brand identity and audience strategy. And so I just wrapped up some work that I was doing with the great brand, The Lip Bar, which is a Black owned beauty brand. So that's what I've been doing.
Awesome. And I think that's so important that like we have that time to figure out, you know what, okay, I've done this for quite some time, but there's something else calling to come my way. And so let me take that on and do it at the pace that makes the best sense for me versus like I have to like it's not choosing to get out of the rat race, but it's like, yeah, it's like I want to choose to do something that matters to me, that really lights me up and gives me that little extra light in the morning.
Right. Well, I read a really great book that I told you my husband is his career coach. So he's always foisting articles and books upon me and coaching. But there is a book called Mind Magic, and it's about manifestation, and not think of manifestation as like this woo woo exercise or, I'm going to manifest that I get $1 million tomorrow. It's really about setting intention of what you want for your life and then training your brain to recognize those signals or creating those paths to make sure that you're aligned with what you're getting and what you're wanting. And when it's really important when you're doing that to think about, again, how can I be of service to others when I'm, working on this work? So I read that book and I, started thinking about a lot of things that I wanted to do. And so I really feel aligned with what I've been manifesting, and that is I get to work in reading, I get to work with authors, I get to work with brands, but I'm also helping people of service because, as I mentioned, there's so many people that are lonely. And to be able to create a community where you can do something like fun and read. Um, and it's been very, very cold in New York, and we're still having events that are like sold out. We had an event a couple weeks ago with the New York Public Library, and 1,500 people showed up to an event on a Saturday night, and it was 8 degrees in weather. So we're definitely onto something that people want.
Oh, you definitely are. It's I see this every day. I mean, we're sitting here at Maison Projects, my event space, and like the number one thing that we're hearing from folks who want to have events in our space is this need for community and what we can kind of gather around, like what shared interests can we gather around, whether it be books and activity, a social cause, whatever it may be. There is it's calling us in. And I think that's the really great part about this particular moment that we have. It's never been easier to get people to get together. Like you have all the tools. You can use Luma, Particle, whatever it might be to make the invitations and
Yeah.
then having spaces. And it's like, why not do that? It's so important that we build community. We know about this loneliness epidemic. I'm also a part of the list and they have to get 10 minutes of togetherness program where it's about, 10 minutes a day. We get to catch up with someone in any way, shape, or form that you can. But those 10 minutes can lead to a lifelong better health because every time we can get people together, the better it is for everybody.
Yeah. No, yes, it is definitely so important to be able to do that.
And having had such a really nice, great section of great experiences and careers in the universe, what do you think you'd tell 18-year-old Sienna?
Oh gosh, people always I love when people ask that. It's like very much like in your therapy, you're like, what would you tell your inner child?
Your inner child,
Um,
yes.
I feel like I would tell 18-year-old Sienna to not be so fearful about doing the right thing because I've always been I wasn't someone who took risks with my career. Like I always made sure that if this is a job that's going to, pay a great salary, that's going to be quote unquote stable, that's going to, you know, make sure it might not necessarily have fulfilled my soul, but I knew that it was going to be like steady employment. Like my grandmother used to always say, Sienna, you're so great. You always have a job. You always have a job. That was like, that was always like,
Yeah. Oh, oh
compared to other
yeah.
people, it's great. You always have a job. And so I would tell my 18-year-old self that it's okay to make a leap, and it's okay to sometimes think outside the box about what you want to do. So that would be one thing. And another thing that I would tell 18-year-old self is we had this conversation before we got on the podcast about when you're in corporate America, how so much of the work that you do is politicking and finding the right relationships. And so 18-year-old Sienna thought as long as you did the work, you were going to get to wherever you'd go because people would see the great work that you were doing and that you didn't need to be so loud about what you were doing because you would see the work. And I would say that is really false, that you have to be your biggest cheerleader. You have to, constantly connect. You don't have to lose your soul doing it, but your biggest advocate is you and finding the right people that can help uh, bring you along the
I
way.
want to put that on a plaque, Sienna, and put on every college campus and every high school and probably even elementary school because folks do not realize this that if you don't talk about how awesome you are, nobody else will.
Yeah,
And listen, politics is everywhere. There is
yeah,
no way around it. And sometimes you can maneuver it in your favor and sometimes you might be the victim of it. But the way to, if you are the victim of it, is that you have talked your shit. And you have talked about how good the thing you did, the thing you made happen, that was you. That was not
yeah,
someone over in that corner. And it's something that I learned later on in my career where I was like, oh, yeah, you only know that was me. That wasn't okay, got it.
yeah, Yeah.
I will
So
share.
what's funny about it, so when I was in high school, we moved from the East Coast. Had been living in New York and in DC, and we moved to Indiana because my mom was a professor at Indiana. And when I went to high school there, they did not know what to do with a black woman who was like very direct. I didn't realize that I was direct coming from the East Coast, but they're like, you're loud, you're talking about yourself. So I learned from school that I had to dim my light because in the Midwest and in these areas, it's not about, you know, shining. Like everything should be like quiet. And so I, suppressed a lot of that. And so, again, saying to your 18-year-old self, just be like, just because other people don't understand you or don't understand, like, do not dim your light. So that's also something else that I would say.
It's so true. Please shine bright like a diamond. Like someone made a joke the other day, and that I said I was like the sun because like I radiate lots of energy, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I do. Yep,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very
That's
important.
that's me. That's
Yeah.
who I am, and I'm not gonna shrink it down for anybody else because they think it doesn't fit into the tiny little box that I should go into.
Yes.
And the more we learn that earlier on in their career, the better off we'll be. Because for
Yeah.
everyone who doesn't like that, there's 4 or 5 other people who are like, yes, girl, okay,
Exactly.
exactly,
Exactly. Yeah. Of course, you have to figure out how to fit. I mean, still keep your authentic self and
yes.
how you navigate it within that space. But yes, don't make yourself small because other people are uncomfortable. So that's really
Yeah, let them be small, not you.
important. Yeah.
Thinking about like where you are at this particular moment and all the things you've been able to build, what's one thing you're really grateful for?
I feel like I'm very grateful for, it's funny, I have a son who is 12. And a lot of people I think are grateful for their children, but my son has significant intellectual disabilities. He's 12, but he functions more like a 2-year old. Um, he's mostly non speaking. He's had some health challenges, but he has been such a source of joy to our family because he has really taught us about accepting people where they are and also about being very present and also finding joy. Like Cade can pick up a paper bag and just crumple it up, and he finds so much joy and excitement listening to that sound, having that feeling. So he's just really taught me and my family about how to enjoy just being and just living. So I'm really grateful for that experience to be able to have that as a mother because I've learned so much from him. And I'm also very grateful that I have the resources to be able to enjoy that because there's a lot of people that have significant special needs and those kind of challenges and they're stretched thin because they don't have the support from their family or their network. So I'm grateful for that piece, but I'm also very grateful for him. So that's what I would say.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I got one last question for you.
Yes.
Do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
I guess like a give, just if anyone is interested in connecting and talking about, I come from the publishing world and I get a lot of people asking me about like book ideas. I'm not going to give anyone like necessarily an agent, but if anyone ever wants to like,
I was like, you'll open up a huge
I
can of
know,
worms.
and I already know that, but if
Like,
anyone ever really wants to like talk about like what are some things that they could be doing or, about publishing, I'm always helpful to, happy to ask about that. And for an ask, just one, if you know of any brands who are trying to reach a bookish audience, to reach out and want to partner with Reading Rhythms. And then also, I am a solopreneur. So if you know of any people who are looking for someone who is a seasoned brand marketer that needs some help on a fractional level, let me know. So,
fantastic. I
yeah.
love this. Yeah, we will like. Yes, Sienna will not get you an agent. Let's make that making that abundantly clear because we know how
Yes.
people can be.
Yeah, I'm not giving
Uh,
those up, but happy to help when anyone's, needs help with their book journey.
awesome. Well, Sienna, you're a delight, and it's
Thank
it's
you.
so great to get to know you finally. I think we've crossed paths like
Yeah. Yeah.
years
Yeah.
before finally making it happen. And like what you're doing right now, I think is so important because
Mhm.
community means so much to everyone, and it's the one where it's a full on democracy. Who doesn't love books? Like
Yeah.
whatever the genre you love, like you can get
Yeah.
great people together and build something really special. So I'm delighted to finally have met you and
Yeah.
have you as
Thank you
part of
so
29
much
Days
for
of
having
Magic.
me. Yeah. Thank you. All right.
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay.
And that's our show.